Welcome to Leading the Way, Oakland School's leadership series, highlighting dynamic leaders throughout the region. I'm your guest host, Dr. Wanda Cook Robinson, and I'm excited today to have with me a longtime friend, Dr. Sobh. Dr. Sobh is the president of Lawrence Technological University, and I want to thank him for taking time out of his busy schedule to join me today.
It's a pleasure being here. Thank you for this, Wanda. I truly appreciate it.
What we're going to do today is just talk a little bit about leadership, something that you have a lot of experience with. So I'm just going to ask a series of questions, and we'd like to get your answers to them. Will that work?
Absolutely. Look forward to it. Thank you.
All right, let's start with our first question. What leadership qualities do you believe have the most essential to your success, and how have you developed them?
So, I can think of several, obviously, but I think amongst the most important ones, in my opinion, is having a vision. Being able to have a vision for the institution that truly inspires the colleagues and the different constituencies that are involved in the business. And having a vision that can be well articulated is as important as having a vision by itself. Being able to talk with the various constituencies, have a vision that is inspiring and impactful for the business, that all the colleagues can be inspired about, buy into, and feel excited about implementing is incredibly important, in my opinion. There are really several qualities, and I would think a close second would be empathy. You have to really care about your colleagues, about the individuals that you are responsible for in the organization. You have to demonstrate that you care about their well-being professionally and in many cases personally. You have to demonstrate that you're willing to invest in their professional development and personal development so they can perform at a high level and be happy individuals in general, contributing to the business. And again, we'll talk later about how to develop these leadership qualities, but empathy is really something that's difficult to teach, let's say, or learn,
Yes.
right? It's really a characteristic of human beings. Most human beings are empathetic by nature, but being intentionally focused on empathy while you're leading an organization and making decisions is something that people can learn. Empathy, in my opinion, is a very, very important quality. Uh, Third would be over communication, right? Over communication. In many organizations, you see structural failures because not everybody knows what the other part of the organization is doing, right?
That's right.
Working in silos. And people might think they are performing exceptionally well in their own silo, right? But at the end of the day, it's communication and knowing about other silos, or getting away from the model of silos, right, is what real leadership is about. And it's also part of inspiring individuals about the whole and the vision for the whole institution and or the organization. It never hurts to over communicate. It never hurts to tell other individuals what you're up to in your own division or department or section or whatever part of the organization. It's always good for people to be informed about what other parts of the institution is up to and what they are working on, because it can help them inform their own decision making and enrich it in many different ways. Over communication is a good thing. Under communication is a terrible, terrible, terrible thing. And that's how you get buy-in, right? When people know what other departments are up to. And I always tell my colleagues, we rise together, we succeed together, and we fail together, right? In an organization like Lawrence Technological University, as an example, there are probably like 30 or 40 different departments and schools and colleges and administrative units and so on. It doesn't help if 10 out of these 50 are succeeding in their limited own view of their own metrics, if 30 others are failing. We're all going to fail together. That I think is really what over communication is about. And over communication subconsciously pushes individuals when they are making decision to think of the impact of that decision on the other units. You, and
Yeah.
not only that, sometimes it guides their decision making so that whenever they are making decision or executing plans, they would think how that would help, for example, a struggling department, or how could that enrich the work of another department. Over communication is, I think, a very important thing for a leader in terms of characteristics. Uh, we talked about empathy, over communication, we talked about vision. Uh, and of course, and that's very tough to quantify as a leadership quality, is innovation. Being Not being worried about thinking out of the box, not being worried about coming up with ideas that some other people might think are crazy ideas, right?
Yeah, they
Just
might think that I had a few crazy ideas
yeah,
in
I'm
my
sure.
time.
Yeah, every day in my no, but seriously, I mean, innovation is all about thinking out of the box, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yes, conforming to standards is important, of course,
Mm-hmm.
for the strength of the business, but truly transformative outcomes that have a significant intellectual merit and broader impact usually come from out of the box ideas, right? And and the leader should encourage that culture, right? Encourage
Yes.
people to think out of the box. Encourage her or his colleagues to come up with ideas without having to worry that these ideas might look stupid or strange or weird to a large part of the community. Because it's, if out of, as you say, 20 crazy ideas, two are truly transformative ideas that really get adopted and implemented, could have an incredible effect
Across the
on the whole
organization.
institution, right?
Mm-hmm.
So innovation, encouraging creativity, encouraging individuals to think out of the box, encouraging individuals to adopt models and think about strategies from completely different types of businesses, right? I mean, when you take a look at Lawrence Tech, we are a higher education institution, right?
Yes.
We are very unique. We're one of 13 universities in the country that are technologically focused by mission, vision, and name, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also doctoral comprehensive, and in our case, independent, private. When we make decisions, there are, for example, 6,000 universities in the US, right? So as a leader and my colleagues who are leaders on this campus, should we only look at the 13 universities that are similar to us, that are
Mm.
technological, comprehensive, doctoral, and private, which is elite company, yes, but there are, 5,900 and,
Yeah.
80, whatever, seven other universities
Yeah.
and, businesses that operate differently and are a different model. No, we should look at them and learn from them. And why should we restrict ourselves to only academic institutions? There are amazing business models that exist in industries and companies that are completely different from higher education that could be adopted, for maximal impact. Innovation, thinking out of the box, and coming up with ideas and encouraging that culture of thinking out of the box and coming with different ideas than the typical ones that are being implemented, I think is crucial for growing businesses and for transforming businesses. I mean, these are more or less what I personally
Mm-hmm.
consider to be amongst the top, leadership qualities. Co- Maybe finally collaboration, of course. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
collaboration is key. I mean, nobody can do, or no department, or no section,
By
or no
themselves.
organization can do everything on its own, right?
Mm-hmm.
Collaboration is key, and I think that's de facto. I mean, organizations, different parts of the institution could collaborate, over communicate, and try to achieve goals together.
Oh wow, totally. I could sit here and listen to you all day.
No,
That is so
trust me, you don't
your
want to do
points your
that.
points are so right on. Particularly the innovation and creating a culture that
That
encourages,
encourages this.
because often when you step out, you might make a mistake. But that's okay.
Absolutely.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
I'm gonna write that one down. The second question: what advice do you wish someone had given you early in your career?
A lot. Well, this is personal, right? And and of course, a lot of different types of advices I would have benefited from, but and this might sound weird. Uh, I was always in a rush as a professional, right? Growing
Mm-hmm.
up, doing my graduate degrees, aspiring to be a faculty member very quickly, trying to rise up the ladder of research and scholarship and so on, and the administration ladder. And I always felt I'm in a race as a
Mm-hmm.
professional, wanting to accomplish things fast, right? It's all about, and maybe this is because of my own training as an engineer, right? Engineering is a discipline where things are reasonably well defined, right?
Mm-hmm.
Certain goals, certain aspirations, certain milestones by a certain time frame, very numbers oriented, right? And I would say that I'm a very numbers oriented, person. I like numbers. I like analyzing them. I like aspiring to them. I like the metrics of success to be very specific, defined by numbers or percentages or ratios and so on. And sometimes you lose something when you are in a race and aspiring to specific metrics quickly to happen to satisfy yourself that you're succeeding or your organization is succeeding. And there are experiences in general in life that should be enjoyed while you're doing that, right? So I think I would have benefited from an advice that would have told me, don't rush, don't don't go so fast, right? Try to enjoy and enrich yourself via different types of experiences. And you can have your pick, whatever these
Mm-hmm.
experiences are. I mean, travel, additional hobbies, whatever, right? And because life is not a race, right? It's a journey,
It's a journey.
and the journey itself is cool and exciting and interesting. It's not the end goal. Life is not necessarily either professional or personal.
Mm-hmm.
Life in general is not defined by specific milestones and goals that have to be reached one after the other. The journey itself is enriching, doing different type of experiences and going through them that do not necessarily correspond to direct contributions to achieve these milestones is still a good thing. Does that make sense?
Oh,
So
absolutely.
so one should not be intentionally 100% focused on experiences and or action items and or things to do only if these things contribute to reaching the metric or the goal that you want to aspire to. No, one should enrich herself or himself by experiencing and enjoying different types of experiences that on the surface might not look to be contributing to the personal or professional goals. Because eventually these experiences, number one, are very enriching from a personal and professional growth. Number two, down the line, 10 years later or 20 years later, these experiences might prove themselves to be incredibly valuable without you having anticipated that
Yes,
10
ma'am.
years ago. So I think I would have benefited from simply somebody telling me that statement, slow down, try to, enjoy and experience
Enjoy the
different
journey.
things. Don't, rush and be
Mm-hmm.
quote unquote obsessed about achieving the interim goals or milestones. I think that would have been actually very, very helpful. There are other advice too, but I think this would be probably the main one. Yeah.
I like that, the journey.
Yeah.
What's the truth about leadership that you believe is rarely discussed but has a profound impact on your approach to leadership?
So um couple of things. So in general, right, successful colleagues and leaders, usually there is a set of factors that contributes to success as a leader, right?
Mm-hmm.
And traditionally, many of us, my, my generation and generation before me and maybe the one after me have always been taught that there are two components, two main components that contribute to the success of a professional and a leader in her or his organization. One of them, of course, is hard work, right? I mean,
Right.
working, a lot, being very resilient, being very conscientious about performing the tasks, putting the extra time in. And that's absolutely true. Hard work is incredibly important. Some people would tell you maybe there is one more quality, and that is intellectual superiority, let's say, right? Being, somebody who's very well learned and, and
Mm-hmm.
having a broad interdisciplinary set of knowledge. Some people call it intelligence, whatever that is, IQ or EQ or any permutation thereof of these two things. But being intellectually well developed, let's call it that,
Okay.
is another significant contributor to success. So you have to be intellectually well developed by training, by education, and so on and so forth. And you have to work incredibly hard. And usually, most leaders, emerging leaders, or you know, individuals who are on the path to leadership, positions and colleagues, think these are the only two things, the two main factors that contribute to success of an individual and eventually of the organizations that these
Mm-hmm.
individuals lead. But people always miss one, in my opinion, one very important pillar on top of these two, which is people who would push and help you along the way. One can never succeed without having an appropriate network and a community of people who support her and
That's
or
right.
him. People who push them, people who mentor them, people who educate them, people who take care of them, people who would tell them when they are right and when they are wrong, people who would provide the references for them, people who would
Mm-hmm.
talk about them at the appropriate places so they can get the promotions and the advancement that they deserve. I would actually place this as equally important, if not in some cases even more important than the first two pillars. Building a community as a leader throughout one's career is incredibly crucial. You
Mm-hmm.
can be the smartest person out there, intellectually developed. You could be the most hardworking individual out there. But without having people who push you and help you and recognize your achievements and help promote you and help support you and push you further in your career, you're never getting anywhere. You're never going to be getting that promotion. You're never going to get that raise. You're never going to get to the position of leadership that enables you to have a bigger impact on society and community and the world in general. So I think intentionally building a coherent and valuable network of
Yeah.
colleagues from all different walks of life, right? While you
Mm-hmm.
are progressing in your professional journey and your personal journey is incredibly important. And that is something that many leaders, because of rushing, because of wanting to get things
Trying to get
done,
to the.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
oversee. And then they get stuck, 5, 6 years. Why am I not getting to the position that I am aspiring to? Why am I not in the leadership
Mm-hmm.
situation that enables me to make a big difference? And they look back because nobody helped them get there. You need help.
You need
You
help.
need
I
references.
agree.
You need people who promote you. You need people who educate and teach and mentor you. You need people to tell
Mm-hmm.
you when you do something wrong so that you can correct yourself and or encourage you on the way so you can do better.
Very
So
important.
I think and of course the key to this, I mean the key to having that network is again collaboration, empathy,
Mm-hmm.
communication. I mean, this is incredibly important. Seeking opportunities to connect with other people at various levels, personal level, professional level. That is incredibly important, and it is a very valuable investment in the leader's time. It's a very valuable investment. So I think this is probably what I would say. So
Very worthwhile. Absolutely. Looking ahead, what do you see as the biggest challenges and opportunities for leaders in our community?
We're going through an incredible upheaval in the world we're living in, Wanda. I mean, things
Oh,
are
yes.
changing dramatically. I mean, we're talking, I'm a techie guy, right? I mean, I mean, we're looking at the age when things like manual labor is being questioned.
That's
Are we
right.
going to have manual labor in 30 years? We're living in the age of autonomous, devices and autonomy
Mm-hmm.
in general. We're living in the age of AI. We're living in the age of deep fakes and, and things of that sort. And I think this is an incredible challenge to the way we do business. It's an incredible challenge and an incredible and amazing opportunity at the same time. So let's think about this. I mean, was there a job called the autonomous car engineer 20 years ago? Was there a
No.
job called the social media marketer 20 years ago? There was
No.
no social media. Was there a job called virtual and augmented reality designer, 20 years ago?
No.
No. I mean, we are actually, I mean, in my business, we are preparing students for job titles that don't even exist,
That's right.
right? I mean, we don't know what the job titles are going to be, right? Seriously, because of the
That's right.
incredible pace of changes in society. As a matter of fact, in our business, we always say probably 80% of what we're teaching our students is going to be obsolete in 5 years. That's
Yeah.
the reality, right? Except maybe the basics.
Mm-hmm.
But they need to have the capability to learn on their own and be lifelong learners and adapt to the incredible change in technology and the emerging paradigms in learning and disciplines, needing to get out of their comfort zone and become, comfortable with change. So I mean, there are jobs that are going to disappear, Wanda, and
Mm-hmm.
completely. I mean, look at healthcare, medicine. The job of radiologist is going to change. Your radiologist, my radiologist, physician who reads the MRIs and CAT scans and X-rays and diagnose based on these scans our health condition.
Mm-hmm.
The best radiologist out there is a radiologist who's seen and diagnosed thousands of these. By experience, you're able to diagnose by looking at x rays and the appropriate training. Well, if you have an artificial intelligence system that has
Mm.
seen a billion different images and
Wow.
x rays and MRIs and CAT scans and EEGs and EKGs and know
Mm-hmm.
the diagnosis, anything that they see is going to diagnose much better than the best
That's right.
radiologist out there, right?
Wow.
So there are jobs that are going to disappear. Look at autonomous cars, right? Have you ever been in an autonomous vehicle?
They frighten me a little bit. Just a little.
No, I mean, they are in Phoenix and, in California and many
Mm-hmm.
different places, you go on the Uber app and you dial Uber and as opposed to, getting a car with a driver, an autonomous car will come in. And, I just took one of these rides a few
You
months
did?
back. Yeah. No, I mean, I've been dealing with autonomous vehicles in terms of research and development. We have like two of them here on campus that we
Uh-huh.
develop and build. And
But
but see,
California is a strange place to
no,
drive in the
that
first
was
place.
Phoenix actually.
Oh, okay, good, good.
Great places. No, all of them are great places. No, but this was the first time I take that ride, a commercial ride, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
so it was kind of cool for me to see, as a roboticist myself, see the kind of work that people like me and others have been working on for the last 30 years and computer vision and sensing and so on come to life commercially. So I'm dialing my Uber, to go
Yeah.
from a meeting to another, and this car comes in and there is no driver and I get in and it was a 25-minute ride through downtown Phoenix to the place that I
Mm.
want. So this is
And you
reality
were
now.
calm the whole time going through?
Yeah, I was actually
Oh,
incredibly happy.
you were.
I FaceTime my family and everyone, and I recorded a
Oh
video
my.
and I posted on social media because it was the first time. I mean, they've existed for a while, but it was the
Mm-hmm.
first time I took a commercial ride. I took rides in autonomous cars
Yeah.
for the last 15 years, but
But
in the
going across
research,
town?
but commercially that was a cool thing. But what I'm saying is, will there be drivers of anything in the future? Will there be car
Mm.
drivers, airplane, pilots, people who drive ships? Probably 50 years down the line, or maybe even much less than that with the pace of change, that's going to change. People are afraid, as you say, because of,
Yes.
but actually
I'd
it's
be a
gonna
little nervous.
actually it's gonna be much safer, Wanda, because when
Really?
all of these cars, the problem is the human factor, my friend. The problem is not
Oh,
in not
yeah.
in the not in the car or the algorithm. The problem is when you mix them together, when you have people who are driving manually and making mistakes, and you have these other devices, then there is a potential for accidents.
I hadn't thought of it that way.
But when everything is autonomous and all of these cars talk to each other and
Mm-hmm.
they all know where they are, there will be zero accidents because it's
Wow.
prescripted, right? So things are gonna happen. I mean, look at AI. I mean, people like myself and my colleagues here in Lotus Tech have been working on AI for 30 years. When I arrived in the US, I was an international student. Arrived from Egypt to study at the University of Pennsylvania. The very first course that I took as a graduate student at the University of Pennsylvania was an AI course. Yes, that was in 1988, and AI has been taught for 10 years before that. But
Mm-hmm.
now you're saying AI in the mainstream, right? You have,
Yes.
ChatGPT and other,
Mm-hmm.
AI tools on your, phone that you ask questions and design things with, and all the time, right? So what does that mean for jobs like writers? What does that mean for jobs like,
And we
people
saw
who
that in California with the writer's strike. They were very concerned
exactly,
about the use of AI
exactly.
writing
How
scripts
about
and so
what
on.
what is going to happen with marketing? What is going to
Mm-hmm.
happen with with the incipience of AI usage in digital integrated marketing and design and communication? So I guess the question is, answering your question, we're not going to lose jobs, right? Actually, I think we're going to have a job boom, but completely different types
Different
of job.
jobs.
It's going to be developing these tools. Is going to be working on making more AI and or other types of machine learning and or other types of efficiencies more realizable in different
Mm-hmm.
businesses. I always say, look at the building we're in, Wanda, right? When you take a look at that building we're in, this was built by human beings, right?
Yes.
30 years from now, there will be no need for construction workers because all of these buildings are going to be is going to be possible to build them with drones and autonomous devices and platforms that pour concrete and design things without the intervention of human
Mm.
beings, which is going to be much safer, right? Even the service industry. I have been to a couple of restaurants in Las Vegas where you don't have any human servers. It's all robotics devices that deliver food and
Hmm.
do them. Yeah, they exist
Wow.
actually. So we're going through an incredible upheaval in so many disciplines that is going to really change the way we work, right? Look at the whole concept of virtual and augmented reality and working from home, right? Or working from anywhere, right? With immersive technologies and augmented reality and virtual reality, we will be able to have a conversation like this or hold a cabinet meeting with us being in 6 different countries as if we're together, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know
That's
what I
right.
mean? So
Yes.
things are changing big time. And again, from the point of view of leadership
Mm-hmm.
development, being very familiar with these technologies and up to date with all of these technologies and being thoughtful about the usage of all of these new technologies in business and introducing them to the business at an early stage so you're ahead of the curve is an incredibly important thing. We have an amazing College of Architecture here, and our architects and students, one of the top in the country in the usage of technology and innovation and AI and design. Our students are designing skyscrapers all the way from not only from the point of view of 3D structure, but also all the way to how to build them in a matter of hours using AI tools after they put
Oh.
the specs of what the building or the structure should function at. People like myself and engineers are capable now of designing airplanes and devices and so on in a significantly small fraction of the time that it used to do these things because again of the incipience of all of these AI tools for
Mm-hmm.
writing, for creating music, for creating videos, for creating structures and buildings and so on and so forth. So as a leader, one should not only embrace that change, but should also try to learn how to maximally utilize all of these innovative tools in the
Mm-hmm.
business ASAP, right? Think about the calculator, right? I used to have elementary school teachers who prohibited us from
Yeah,
using in middle school. In my case, even all the way to high school, they used to frown upon using
that's
calculators.
right.
But, you know, these tools are the new calculator, Wanda, right? Whether it's, Midjourney or whether it's,
Yeah.
Chat GPT, it's like the spreadsheet, so these are just tools that will change the way we behave, that change the way that we write, change the way that we do business. And as leader, we should embrace that. It is a challenge because you have to keep up to
Yeah,
date all the
keeping
time,
up is a
but
challenge.
it is an incredible opportunity to
Hmm.
be ahead of the curve and be more productive and more efficient and really superior in the way you execute your business and projects. So that would be
Wow.
my thinking. It's a
Staying ahead,
brand.
staying abreast of it is going to be
Yeah,
the key.
it's a brand new world. It's going to be
It
very
is.
cool and exciting. Actually, we're living through an incredible upheaval, which is very interesting. Actually, I think.
I have one last question for you. What advice would you give to emerging leaders in the Human Resource Leadership Academy?
Couple of things. I want to emphasize the point about really being comfortable getting out or being confident getting out from your comfort zone, not being afraid
Hmm.
getting out from your comfort zone, which circles back to our discussion about innovation and
Yes.
creativity. And life is not necessarily a straight path with, with specific milestones that have
Hmm.
to be accomplished in the fastest possible time. I mean, I look at myself and I look at my colleagues and I look at human resource individuals and the advice they give to their clients and or in their case the employees and the colleagues and the institutions and others. And life is not really a straight line and never was, never will be. And there are especially with the advent of technology and all of these upheavals we just
Hmm.
talked about, sometimes it never hurts to try something new, and that trying of something new, capturing an opportunity that was not in the plan, could lead to something incredible. Being able, embracing change and not being afraid of trying new things that you thought you would never do could lead you down a path that is amazing and creative and very productive. I'll give you a couple of examples. I never thought that I'll be a professor, like at all, or teach in my life. I was a graduate student. I was having fun designing robots and making machines in the late 80s, early 90s. And, I was given an opportunity to teach a class, an undergraduate class, as
Hmm.
a PhD student. And frankly, it was interesting actually, because usually when teaching assistants don't necessarily lecture, they typically grade maybe projects
Right.
or laboratories, assist the professor. That particular year, the professor, for whatever reason, asked me if I could actually do the teaching because he had other things to do. And I was a kid. I was like, 22 years old or whatever. And it was a senior level class at University of Pennsylvania, meaning these students were my age or, or whatever. And I had taken that class last year myself or a year before as an undergraduate. And actually, I was scared, right, initially. And I could have said no. I mean, did something else. And I said,
Nah, you
well,
wouldn't say no.
no, I mean, there are
It's a
opportunities.
challenge.
Yeah. I thought, you know what? What the heck? Let me try this. Maybe it'll be interesting.
Hmm.
And it was transformative. I loved it. I loved teaching. I loved, interacting with the students, working on projects. And, as a teacher,
Yes.
you learn with your students. I mean, that's the whole
Hmm.
thing, doing other types of things. I had so much fun. And that particular experience that I was worried about or contemplating not doing because I was busy doing other things and, in my work at the university led to me considering that maybe an academic career could be actually interesting. Complete happenstance. Was not at all
Oh.
something that I ever aspired for. Never in a million years would I have thought that I would be an academician at all. Uh, I mean, even going for grad school for me was a happenstance. Basically, you know, it was during one summer, and I was at the University of Utah, and I stumbled upon the name of a professor that, as an undergraduate, I used to study from the book that he
Mm-hmm.
wrote. And I just went and said hi to that professor, and he asked me a question: "Are you doing anything in the summer?" And I said, "No, I was an international coming from Egypt, and I was just touring, the U.S. with a couple
Yeah.
of my friends during the summer, just a summer trip." Said, "Well, we have this project, and we need undergraduates who would help us do programming, right, in a particular language. And I have never programmed in this language." So the professor was asking me, "We need help, right?
Mm-hmm.
And do you know how to program in a language called Lisp, right? And Prolog? Do you know?" I think the question was, "Do you know Lisp or Prolog?" That famous professor was asking me because, he needed help in the project. And when he said that, I sensed there was an opportunity coming, right? I said, "Yeah." And yes meant I heard of them. I actually never did anything with them. But that led to me being part of a research group and learning,
Learning it.
this language and contributing to the project. And so, well, maybe being a graduate student is a cool thing. And I applied to grad school. So I guess, and I can tell you 20 different stories of my career along these lives about positions that I assumed or whatever. So I guess what I'm saying, getting out from one's comfort zone and being open to trying new things, even if they were not in the plan, can lead to amazing opportunities and paths that never would have occurred to one's mind. That doesn't mean that I should go and do heart surgery. I'm going to kill someone, but be prepared is what I'm trying to say. Being
Yeah.
prepared and being accepting and willing to try something new makes a huge difference. Human resources professionals should encourage that in the employees. Trying something new, getting out from one's comfort zone is very important. The other thing is, again, all of this is good, but again, it's very important for one to define metrics for success, right? When there are goals out there, whether the path is a straight line, which I don't encourage, or whether the path runs through different experiences, having milestones in general is a good thing. Having metrics for success for various employees to aspire to and works toward in different ways, right?
Right.
Is important for the individual growth of the professional and for the business overall. So that would be my advice.
Wow. Well, Dr. Sobh, I want to thank you for sharing your pearls of wisdom
Yes,
with us today.
I wouldn't go far as calling them wisdom, but it was fun talking with you on that. It really was.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Wanda. Thank you.
And this concludes our exchange of ideas for today. But I hope all of you will stay tuned and view more of this series of our dynamic leaders across the region.